Check, check, check. Can anyone hear me? Hey, all right. That's great. Well, I'd like to thank Adam for inviting me back to Kannonji here. It's been a long time since I've been in the temple. Thanks for coming, everybody. Re-entry syndrome. Noisy. It's noisy. Oh, good. Or something. So today I wanted to, I was reflecting about the last time I was here talking, and I found it really an odd sort of experience because usually when you're giving a talk you have a physical presence or a physical sense in the room, and so it's just something that's completely cut off. You all sit so much more still than a live audience. Maybe they should program in sort of like itching and shifting around and rubbing your knees and stuff into the postures here, so that I can feel like I'm in an actual Zendo. But what I actually wanted to ask about is, it's been a long time since I've been here, and the last time I was here, I was talking about community and building community, and I guess one of the big questions that we were talking about and discussing was how to develop a real depth of feeling of community. To how does the online community, like one here at Kannonji, develop into a deeper relationships. And so I haven't been here, and I'm just wondering how that's going, if you people all practice together, or if you do more than just come and sit here isolated and interact with one another. Anyone have any comments on that? You all hear me still, or? It's just nobody has any comments. So I guess that kind of speaks for itself, maybe. There's not been a lot of... Just found this place last night. Awesome. Interaction. Yeah. Real Zen Centre. One of the things that we found here in Victoria was it wasn't until the physical location of our main meditation hall moved outside of the city, then people had to connect for carpooling out, and it wasn't until then where you had, you know, 3 or 4 people packed into a car for the 45-minute drive out to the Zen Center together, where they started to actually get to know one another. It didn't have so much to do with the meditation practice as much as it did actually finding out who these people were that you were sitting beside. So when I said, you know, it sounds like a sort of real-life Zen center, it's absolutely true, because people do the same thing in those kinds of centers as well. Just sort of show up, do your practice, and then where you don't talk, Zen zombies. And then when you're done, you do your bows, maybe throw back a cup of tea, and then head back out home. So I'm just curious what you're interested in talking about today, because I found that last time me sort of monologuing for the whole time I wasn't really sure how that went over, and I think part of the idea of this is really offering an opportunity for dialogue and interaction around the world. So maybe everyone could sort of, if you're willing to share, just sort of let me know where everybody is from. And even if you're, if you want to sort of maintain your privacy, I'm cool with that. But just, city or country or anything. Holland near Amsterdam. We've got a fellow that's connected with us in, I don't even know how to say it, Rejubric or something like that. Yeah, no, this is what it's all about. More and more, one of the things we're doing at the Victoria Zen Centre is really seeing that, unless you're living directly in a city center, then your ability to connect with the Zen Center is really small. And even if you live in a city center, there's no saying that you're going to jibe with the local offerings. And one of the things that Dingus McGee is from Scotland. What a surprise! Yeah. One of the things that we're finding is that the number of people who do not live in city centers and who live sort of in the outskirts of town, who have an interest in Zen or Buddhism of any stripe, really have a tough time. And it's certainly as if the centers themselves and the teachers really aren't making a huge effort to reach out to these people. So I really appreciate Adam putting this kind of place up so that we can have this sort of simultaneous international dialogue. That's great. So I'm open to any kind of question right now. There was one question up here. Let me just sort of scroll back a little bit. I'm interested in the core of Buddhism and what people in time had made of Buddhism. Can you clarify that? I mean, actually, one of the things I'd like to ask here is, my hope or my assumption maybe is that many or most of you have some kind of practice yourselves. And so what I'm interested in talking about is sort of where the rubber hits the road for you as individuals in your own practice. There's lots of books about Buddhism. There's lots of much better scholars about Buddhism probably than I am at universities all over the place that have written lots and lots of books. So if your question's kind of a general one, that you figure you can get a quicker answer out of from Wikipedia, I'd like to sort of ask that we really look at our own practice and try to ask a question from our hearts about something that is impacting our practice or is maybe an obstacle in our practice, and we can go from there. Rubber hits the road. What does that mean? It means, okay, you've got sort of Buddhist philosophy, but it's like, how do you practice that? It's where there's traction. That's where it comes from. Is where it's like a car tire hitting the road. You got traction. If it's not in contact with the road, it's just spinning. It's just spinning, and that's sort of, we can get like that with when we start talking about philosophy. I hope that helps. So do many of you practice with local communities in your own towns? So is this kind of your primary venue for practicing or interacting with people? No, this is great. Both of those questions are entirely tied together. You know, something about the need of Sangha, practicing with others together, Zen, why the emphasis on finding a teacher? Okay, I think that's a great place to start. We look at sort of the teachings of the Buddha. We talk about, like, in any ceremony that we do, one of the first sort of aspects, rituals of form that we use is called taking refuge, taking the three refuge, or the three treasures: Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. I think a lot of people these days, when you start talking about teachers, I really kind of understand sort of the aversion that some people have towards this kind of mantra of, like, oh, you should find a teacher, you should find a teacher. And oftentimes I think that that's really given a kind of a mystical spin, like, you know, you need to find a guru that can sort of fix you or something like this. And I kind of, I go a totally different direction, which is that when the Buddha was asked about how to find a teacher, the Buddha said, you want to spend some time investigating that person to ensure that what they're saying and what they're doing are consistent. And I think that what you're looking for in a teacher is that what the person is teaching, what the person is promoting as far as practice and a way of making relationship is being demonstrated in the character of his person, his or her person. So one of the things is, you know, the old Chinese masters, the phrase that they used to use for or even the one sensei in Japanese, which we translate as teacher, means somebody who is the one who has gone before. And there's this phrase, a good friend along the way. So I think that in the West we have this idea of a teacher being, you know, perfect or sort of complete in some way, and I don't think that that's a healthy way of looking at at or for a teacher. But if you're looking for a teacher, someone who can promote this, or someone who can offer guidance, you're looking for somebody who can actually offer a model as well. This is what it looks like. This is what it feels like. This is what it is to be in relationship with somebody who is manifesting this teaching as a way of life. So I think to respond to this question, Padakin, can't anyone be a teacher? I think that anyone can offer you the circumstances of learning, but as far as being an example of a philosophy, anyone that is manifesting harmoniously with what they're saying, with what they're teaching, sure. But when you're looking for a guide or an example of a particular system, I guess we could say, which is fundamentally what any of these traditions is a system of awakening, you're looking for the test model. You know, you're looking for, you know, what does this practice actually lead to? You know, one of the things that I always try to remind people of, or try to suggest to people, is that, you know, when you go to a community, when you go to a Zen center, A lot of people really focus on what the teacher is saying or doing, but you should really have a look around the room and look at the people who are there. Fundamentally, this practice is based on awakening. Fundamentally, this practice is about liberation from suffering. So if you look around you in the room, it's not going to be everybody, but you should certainly be able to see and find and experience through interaction with people who are fundamentally happy, people who are fundamentally sort of solid. You can feel it, this practice isn't just in your head. It has a manifestation, again, where the rubber hits the road. So when we're looking for a community and for a teacher, we're looking for an opportunity to experience the manifestation of what's being taught there in a very visceral, very physical sense, a concrete way. What does this look like on the ground? Sangha. The other aspect about teacher that is I think just as important is that it goes both ways. This relationship between teacher and student, so-called teacher and student, between these two people, one who is established in this particular form, I guess, a particular system, and the person who's coming, visiting, the guest, host and guest, as we call it in the tradition that I was raised in, is that it's mutual, and that the relationship over time, it has to start with I feel a gradual development of trust, that this consistency that we can come across, and it takes some time to really investigate it, really spend some time looking at the person and how the person conducts themselves, how the person faces various different kinds of challenges. And as you see a consistency there, you'll find naturally that trust starts to develop. And then as you develop your trust, it kind of goes both ways, and the foundation of the relationship with that teacher has to be honesty. And fundamentally, the importance of it, the crucial aspect of it is this honesty, because the reality is you can look fantastic on your cushion. You can develop wonderful posture, and you can develop a wonderful mind of knowledge of all of the 8s of this and the 6s of that and the 12s of those and all the rules and regs and guidelines of Buddhist practice. And you can even appear to be living by them all. But there's only one person who knows what's going on in your head and in your heart, and that's you. And the teacher's job is to just cultivate this relationship of honesty, of intimacy with you, in which you can be mirror reflections, and you can really offer each other accountability to a community of practice, a community of awakening as you practice together. And the same goes with Sangha. The teacher, I sometimes sort of look at the form of a Zen center. My background before I got into Zen practice was in theater. And so I often look at a Zen center with all of the various officer roles, the people who ring the bells, and it shouldn't just say any Zen center, but any community, in fact. I think it's helpful to look at it as almost like a dramatic presentation in which there are these sort of the roles. There are roles, And part of the practice, at least in the tradition that I come from, is just like in acting, allowing the personal self to drop away so that you can step into this role for a particular period of time, so that you can function in a particular dynamic for a period of time. The fundamental value of any of those players, of any of those participants and practitioners, is not greater or less. They just play different roles. And so when we come together as a community, we begin to practice interdependent relationship. The teaching is that we're all fundamentally interconnected, interdependent, co-arising, right? Pratitya samutpada. But we don't realize it. And so when we come together in a community, it's like a microcosm where we have this opportunity to investigate what that means, to be mutually connected and mutually responsible and mutually accountable. That what I'm saying is at all helpful. It's so hard to tell because, like, I don't know, maybe you guys have all left the area and gone to get a coffee, gone, oh, what's this guy talking about? What advice would you give those of us without a local sangha or teacher? Many of us come and do this because we've not found somewhere local that really fits. When all else fails, what is the best practice for those of us doing solitary practice? Oh, well, you know, I think that this is becoming less and less of a, no, how can I say that? Hope is that it will become less and less a problem for people. I think that our center is really kind of on the cutting edge of trying to cultivate places of practice, because what is the requirements? What are the things that you really need in order to cultivate a practice in a place that's away from a center, or you haven't found somebody to practice with or view as a teacher? The technology that we have today is really sort of minimizing these gaps, and I guess the question for me is really more about how do you use the things that you've got to actually support your practice? And there are still many Zen centers, many practice centers that really have a strong resistance, or just I think an ignorance of what's possible. So I think, let me just see make sure I'm answering the question here. I think, you know, one of the things I think is really starting to develop is the function of Zen centers like my own to act as a sort of collecting place for people who are spread out. The reality is that I think probably in your town, in your city, wherever you are, there's probably several people that are practicing by themselves, and the question to me becomes how can the existing teachers and existing communities serve to resource those practitioners and possibly bring them together, or possibly not. You know, we have at this Victoria Zen Centre right now, we're in the middle of what's called our non-residential training period. And what we've done with that is I basically looked at a residential training period in a monastery, and I said, like, what are the things that you do here? You do a fair bit of sitting meditation, you do some chanting, you do a little bit of study, you listen to talks, you do some work practice, you do some body practice like physical exercise. There's occasional intensives, and you do interview with the teacher. So what I set about doing was just sort of how to make those things possible for people who are not only distant, but even in the city who don't, you know, they can't be at the Zen Center all the time. So I just sort of quantified each of these things in various levels and said, like, how hard do you want to hit it, you know? So say the highest sort of commitment that people have for the non-residential training period is 5 hours of Zazen a week. and it's entirely up to each individual to schedule that in however much each day, however long. But the target is 5 hours a week, and 3 hours of body practice, and 5 hours of caretaking, and all this stuff is broken up. And it's left to each individual to fulfill that in a week, or to plug it into their calendar. And each week, each individual person has to basically report back. They have to send in an email to the Zen Center, to one of the training guides. There's 3 of us for this. And then you have to book a Skype interview once a week or once every 2 weeks to just sort of check in and make sure that practice is running along. One of the things that we did this year was to have a message board where all the participants of the non-residential training period could connect. So basically, what we're trying to do is, and then of course, for the talks, we've got the Living Zen podcast, which Adam hosts some of them here as well. We do an online e-Zendo Monday and Thursday mornings at 6 o'clock PST, which is live video feed of me sitting in the Zendo, and there's a list down the one side of the screen that lists all the people who are also sitting and meditating. So we've got recorded chant tracks, and the chant sheets that we use here are available for printing off so that people can chant along with the recording of our community doing the chanting. So the idea that I've got is really about how do you shore up, how do you support a person's practice is the one aspect that's a benefit of living or being in relationship with a center, with a community. And the other aspect that's very important is accountability, is responsibility, is commitment. Because the one sort of downfall of solo practice is that you're not accountable to anybody but yourself. And so any time where it's you're too tired, or you can get away with it, right? And that sort of Mara mind, the one that wants comfort and the one that wants ease and all this kind of stuff, if you're just by yourself, it's got a lot more practice of running the show than the Buddha mind a lot of the time in our lives. So we sort of fall down to that. So by sort of having a trackable system and an accountability measure and an opportunity to check in and supports of talks, there's a lot of things that really sort of shore up your individual practice. Fundamentally, the key of it is that you don't feel like you're practicing alone. You feel like you're a distant member of a family, and that you're cared about, and that you're supported, and that people have got your back. People are watching out. If you're having a week where there's a lot of resistance, there are multiple channels that you can actually get in contact to look for support. Whether it's posting a message on the forum, sometimes it's just like being able to laugh about practice, being able to go like, wow, I just watched myself totally bail on myself and practice and go eat the whole bunch of chocolate cake instead, and have people who relate to that, and people who can talk about how that happens sometimes, and how it's less about when we fall down, but it's about how we stand up and how we continue to move forward with our practice without getting guilty about it, without getting remorseful about it, or without sort of punishing ourselves further. So I think how should one do up an altar in their own home? Well, this stuff is all, people ask me all the time about home practice, about, should I wear, the robes, or should I light incense, or should I do some chanting, or should I do up my altar in a particular way? My response is about home practice is always experiment keep what works and discard what doesn't. When you're at home, it's your temple. So if you find that practicing consistently with a particular form that you find supportive, then do that. And if you find, like, you know, some people like having incense, some people don't, and so if you find that the smoke is distracting, don't burn incense. If you find that the smell is like a tantra, is like a, you know, for me, I find I'm very connected with the sense of smell. So I'm, you know, if I sit, I'm going to burn incense because it just kind of gets me there faster. It just sets the stage for me to sit. The same with sort of an outfit. I find, you know, I really don't like to, you know, get out of bed and do Zazen in my pajamas, for example. It's like when I go to the gym, I wear clothes that are appropriate for the gym, and it helps me get into the spirit of being in the gym. And if I go to a dance studio, I wear the appropriate clothes for the dance studio. And if I go to the Zendo to meditate, I wear appropriate meditation attire. But that's just me. If you find that, the bother of having to get a particular set of clothes on is a distraction or an obstacle to sitting, then just drop out of bed and sit in your pajamas. And experiment with it. You know, that's the key thing is, rather than theorizing about it intellectually, rather than trying to decide this is good or this is bad, I'm more focused on try it, see what its impact is on how your practice actually works, and then make a call about that. And also recognize that that's not a fixed thing and that can move. Sometimes, you know, I don't like incense for a year, and then, you know, I think I want to burn some incense. You're in your home, make it free. If you're looking at how to deepen your relationship as a distance sort of person, and you're finding that you're making a relationship with a particular center, it can really be helpful to incorporate the form of that center into your home practice, because then you become sort of bound, or you become connected through the use of form, and that can be helpful. Now, how should one do up an altar in their home? Well, I can tell you, like, do you want to know, like, what the tradition, I mean, there's some components, basically, of a traditional Butsudan, I guess. Do you want to know that, or? Yeah, a simple arrangement. Yeah, I mean, basically, the key things, at least from my background and my tradition, are flowers, incense, and a candle, and an image. Now, I've seen images that are a rock. I mean, basically what you're looking for as an image is a manifestation of your true nature. And so, you know, the most common one is Buddha, representing a fundamental nature. But there isn't anything in this world that doesn't have that nature. So you can put something that inspires you up there, whether it's a piece of calligraphy, whether it's a rock, whether it's a, I don't know, piece of cheesecake, whatever works. There are other components, flowers, incense, and candlelight. They're just symbolic of three components. Ostrich egg, that's awesome. That's awesome. That's like pregnant possibility. Anyway, flowers, they represent some things. So the flowers represent the sila, ethics. So just like flowers, a life that is lived in harmony with the sila is a pleasure to behold, and it's a joy to be around. You know, it's a fragrant thing that everybody likes, a person who lives in harmony with the sila. This is the first. The second one, incense, it represents samadhi. So this is samadhi, this experience, the experience of unification, the experience of all things being fundamentally unified. The metaphor is that just like, if you light a stick of incense upstairs in your house and you go downstairs, you will smell it. There's no escaping. It permeates everything through the under the doors and through cloth and around curtains. Samadhi is this manifestation of our true nature, one true nature in all things. And the candle, of course, represents prajna, wisdom. It's light. It illuminates all things in the cosmos. So if you want a formal Butsudan, as long as you've got these three components, four if you include the image of sila, samadhi, and prajna, that's a well-balanced simple one. Does that help, Adam? Atra, don't bother asking if anything's inappropriate. It's all appropriate as long as it's genuine. At least with me, I really appreciate the respect, but I really want people to feel free to ask any questions. You want to ask questions about, I don't know, bowel movements or something, please go ahead. Whatever you like. How does one choose a tradition to follow? That's a really, how does one pick a car to drive? How does one pick a food to eat? I don't think it's a terribly different one. I think what's important is to have your senses about you, to go into to check places out, or to investigate thoroughly many traditions. For me, a lot of it has to do with a real, it starts with a very intuitive approach. And it starts with, your own, I hate to use the word almost, but your own personal karma. And by that I mean like the causes and circumstances that have brought you to the situation that you're currently in. When I first started practicing Buddhism, I had a very difficult relationship with Roman Catholicism. My childhood sort of, I don't really want to get into the long-winded story of it, but overall, my relationship with Roman Catholicism was strained. So when I started investigating Buddhism, I went into a Tibetan center, and there was a lot of brass. This is going to sound funny. There was a lot of brass and a lot of burgundy. And for me, that just, and a lot of colors. And for some reason, it just kind of emotionally reminded me of Roman Catholicism. And so I wasn't particularly interested in that aesthetic. And when I came across Zen, it was, I had been practicing some martial arts for a while, and just the aesthetic of it, the very sort of black and white, very sort of straightforward, straight lines, kind of aesthetic of it really sort of emotionally connected with me. And then the significant difference of spare and simple, yeah, exactly. But not only of the physical aesthetics, but the influence of Taoism on Buddhism, which sort of influenced Zen, was that the bold and colorful images of sort of Indian Tibetan Buddhism were stripped away, and it became like it was Buddhism haiku that came out the other end in China and Japan, and it hit me so hard and so cleanly that I never questioned that particular direction. So I think that you have to combine some intellectual critical investigation. You have to use your think. You have to use your thinker. You have to go in and and ask questions. I think you have to look at the emotional response of a particular aesthetic and form. But then I think you really, going the other way again, you have to really look at the living example of the particular tradition, both in terms of a teacher as well as a community. You know, if you really get off on a particular tradition or a school in books, and then you go to the center and you don't like the people there, you can't get along with the people there, they seem weird to you, or you just have difficulty communicating with them, then don't pledge allegiance to a particular tradition. And in general, my hope is that as you're investigating this stuff, that the greatest allegiance that you have is towards your own awareness, awakening itself. It's not bound up in a tradition. These are just containers. So, you know, it's like if you're thirsty for a glass of water, it doesn't matter what what the glass looks like, right? You've got to find the cleanest, most refreshing water. So go in with your heart and your mind and fully investigate it, and just follow it. If there's resistance, if there's not a strong connection, then maybe investigate some other things. Give yourself something to compare to. You know, trust yourself. I hope that helps. Do you have an interest in any particular tradition yourself? You know, I think that's a misconception. They vary a lot between traditions. You know, the Buddha, I think, wanted to be a really serious student too. And so he went and fully immersed himself in the teachings and the whole residential communities of two of the major teachers of his day, and went from bottom to top practicing these schools. So I don't think, I mean, one of the greatest dangers, I think, that we face when we're investigating practice is this aversion to making any kind of mistakes, or aversion to imperfect fit. So I'm always sort of, you know, I think there's nothing better to do with your time than to investigate this. If you go into something and you're just like, oh my God, this is just terrible, then, you know, don't spend a bunch of time there. But if you connect with something and you go, there may be something here, then I encourage you to really connect with that group, to apply yourself wholeheartedly to that. And if it becomes exhausted, you can move on. All right, Dingus. Have fun in Scotland. Yeah. So I mean, have you done much practice with anyone, Atra? Here. Time already up. Holy cow, eh? Yeah. Okay. So, Asha, what I would recommend, you know, is do you sit at all? Do you do meditation at all? Yeah. See, from my perspective, I mean, it's so hard to discern things with the intellect alone, because especially me, I'm not the brightest bulb in the bunch. so you know, philosophy, debating philosophy can be quite challenging. You know, yeah, I think that even starting to sit a little bit gives you a perspective or a grounding, so that you can better sort of assess. I agree, it is really hard by yourself, but you know, you're always welcome to join us at in the Zendo. I'm sure Adam's probably going like, "Oh God, this is turning into a commercial for the Victoria Zen Centre," but yeah, I mean, the stuff that we put out, that we do, the podcasts are on iTunes, and they're free and they're open to everybody. The Zendo that we offer on Monday and Thursday mornings is free, and it's open to everybody. And we record that because I recognize that not everyone is in the Pacific time zone, so you can participate with the Zendo recording. It's not as good as live, of course, but it's not that much different than live because I just sit there. I'm on Facebook too, so if you want to connect with me on Facebook, you'll be way more in the loop. And our website is zenwest.ca, and you can certainly search around there. There's lots of great stuff in there. And of course, you can always contact me anytime you have a I type this, will it go to everybody? That. Pleasure. Great. Yeah, so, and if you have any questions for me personally that you don't particularly want to ask, you know, in a public forum, even a virtual public forum, please do. Is it open to foreigners? Well, I'm a Canadian, so you're all foreigners. Yeah, we've got members in New Zealand and Germany and Holland, United States, of course. Yeah. Totally open. Happy to help. And this is a part of it is that we're one of the few centers, I think, that are really making a concerted effort to connect with people, who take people who are who are at a distance really seriously. A lot of centers, I think, really have this attitude that, like, oh, if you're a serious practitioner, you'd uproot your life and come live here. And, well, yeah, okay, if you're going to become a monk, maybe, but if you're, you know, got a family and you're working in a career and that's your primary focus, how do you maintain a practice, and how do you maintain that intensity of commitment to your practice? We like to really try to support that.